I am an INFJ and my sister is an ENFP. INFJs are really a joy. They they're just happy to be alive. They're just like, wow, life is just so wonderful, and they really bring a lot of joy to life. INFJs have the NE for their first function, so they are very observant. I like to be around any DOMs. It makes me feel not crazy. I remember one time I went shopping, and I don't like shopping, but it was that time, and so I checked out all the stores and see if I could find anything that would work for me, and they spit me back out afterwards, and I had nothing. And I wondered, am I crazy? Did I just imagine that there wasn't anything? Am I just like being especially difficult and I couldn't find anything? Maybe I should just go back in there and find something. But 2 hours is my limit. I'd already reached that. So, but anyway, I was talking to my sister. I guess it was a few months later, and she said the clothes this year are really weird. They are prints that have camels and parrots and palm trees on them, and they only have a waist that goes with a certain body type. And like, she listed 3 or 4 other things, and even now I can't remember them, but as she said them at the time, it was in my brain, it was fuzzy, but I recognized that all those things were true. So those things are getting into the INFJ mind, but it's not necessarily very clear. So it's really interesting, being around any DOM and be like, oh, that's why I thought that thing. And since it's out in the open, you can more easily evaluate it. Since NI is the only perceiving function I read that is not conscious. So a lot of times we don't know how we come to the conclusions or what it is that went into it. Not that NE is entirely what it is that we are processing, but it definitely is also in there, because it's in the background from the NI. Any DOMs are also very witty. They can be very witty in their conversation. They choose just the right word, just the right timing. They can be pretty funny. Even if they're not 7s, then they're going to have 7 characteristics. And I read that most comedians are 7s or 6s, so yeah, they can definitely be pretty funny. It's pretty cool when you like when you're talking to an ENFP, like if you're messaging them or whatever, you can have 3 or 4 different themes going and go back and forth and everything in between them. So it's a lot of fun. ENFPs are also the person, one of the types that you would want to get if you want to go gallivanting, go exploring and stuff. I read that INFJs are let we drive like little old ladies if we are driving someplace that we're not familiar with, and it's true, at least in my case. And boy, no, ENFPs, they can just, are you like, oh, you want to see that place? Dude, they can turn on a dime and make it all happen. Excuse me. If somebody wants to gallivant while I'm driving, then they just kind of have to, like, no, what kind of place is it that you want to see? Okay, let's look in the GPS and let's see what places like that are available around here. Let's look them up. Let's see the reviews. Okay, we'll decide on this place. I'll put that address in and we'll go. I don't want to put anyone in danger. You do not want to go gallivanting with me. Driving, that is. I do like to gallivant, but if somebody else is driving. ENFPs are very resourceful. They're very good at having fun in the moment, and they're very good at utilizing whatever it is that's available, and then we're all going to imagine that it's this way and have fun. They have a really whimsical kind of side to them. It's not the same as with an INFP, but it kind of reminds me of it. Like an INFP wrote Winnie the Pooh, so you have this whole kind of whimsical imaginary world, and it's perfectly valid to them. And an ENFP can have something kind of a little bit similar. Also, because of their TE being in the 3rd spot, they really aspire to that, and they will kind of really enjoy kind of playing house almost in a way, but not necessarily just with a house kind of situation, but just like, okay, this is your part and this is my part, and you do this and then you do that, and they'll, their SI is in that fourth position, so it kind of comes and goes, and they do kind of like to set up in some things, like their little traditions of always doing something in a certain way, in a certain order, and being, sentimental, and having, a certain thing that you do in a certain place or a certain time or whatever. Their SI, because it's not really very stable, they do remember, but not everything. And because they have that TI blind spot, they just remember certain things. Because they have that TI blind spot, they may have kind of a distorted memory of things, just because they're not able really to see the big picture. So it could get distorted because they give undue significance to different things and how they're related to other things. Also, because of their TE, it can be a temptation for them to get swept away by doing something that would maybe be more esteemed by the world at large, and maybe forgetting what they personally believe and what they personally value, or what they personally desire. And of course, I think that could vary according to culture. I think this culture is really TE. I would say it's a TE culture, just do it culture. So there are particular things that they can be really good at aren't necessarily things that are very respected by society at large. So I think that this is especially a large struggle that ENFPs have. Of course, with their NE, they're kind of doing the opposite of what an INFJ does. We can take all this information and then just narrow it down, whereas they have a certain thing to begin with and they branch it out. So it's a very different process. When they are, well, I'll say that ENFPs and INFJs are the most similar in a way, because actually, according to socionics, we are a mirror relationship or something. I guess it's the same thing but reversed or something. But well, according to sociologists, you have with somebody that because their ENFP is in the INFJ subconscious, you have to work at having like some boundaries and stuff because you don't naturally have them. It's really funny to see people that have that relationship. Of course, that happens to many other types also, and it's like there's literally nothing between them. It's really funny to see them like standing together or whatever. Another thing with socionics is that like with this relationship is that if you are, maybe you'll get along very easily when you're just by yourself, but then like if you're in a group, then you'll have this like competitive thing trying to come in. So that's something that's good to know. I actually even sent it to my sister, just to kind of explain things, because a lot of times you will take things personally and you don't realize it's just the personality kicking in there, and if you know about it, then you can work with it, but anyway, I was just going to say about so we have a lot in common with the ENFPs in some ways, and one of those ways is that I think that we ascribe, like we give the same amount of space to the whole people thing, and we ascribe the same importance to it. They come at it from a different direction than we do, but they are definitely into all the intricacies of all the different relationships and this and that and the other. They're very, it's just as important to them as it is to us. They have, because of their NE, the ways they will evaluate people and learn about people and see how they are and everything is based on actual observation of what the person literally does. Of course, they have the NI in the background, so that's also in the picture. But basically, they are comparing what they observed in the past, because it's going together with their SI and their memory of everything that they've ever seen. And so if they see you do a certain thing, then basically they're going to be like, well, the other 50 times, that I saw someone do something, it meant this certain thing. So necessarily, the more people that they see and the older that they get, the better they're going to be at this. if you are something new for them, then they are at a huge disadvantage and they're pretty slow in the uptake. But and that's another thing, that ENTPs are really good at tuning into your emotion, but if they haven't actually been around you, they don't really know what you are like, especially, you know, if you're different, they're not really necessarily going to know who you are. I don't really know how you can explain the difference between that, but they definitely do tune into your emotions. They have the FE in the 6th spot, so it is pretty strong, and they just really understand it without, beyond the point of even thinking about it. If you look at ESFPs and ENFPs, you can pretty well tell where society is at, because maybe they're doing something that looks kind of, you know, out there, but it's never going to be too far out there. The difference between ESFPs and ENFPs and INFJs and ISFJs, because, you know, the ENFPs and the ESFPs have the FE in their 6th spot, and then they have the FI in their 2nd spot, and then we're opposite, the INFJs and ISFJs. So the INFJs and ISFJs will be like, well, we favor the FE, right? So we're like, well, let's just go along with everyone else and stuff, unless it's something that's really important to me personally, and then I'm going to go with what I feel personally. Whereas the ESFPs and the ENFPs are the opposite. They'll be like, well, let's go with what I personally like, unless it's something really important, and then we'll go along with the group. So, we're coming at it from different standpoints. As I was saying earlier about the NE and how they observe people, that INFJs, we basically start out with having the NI, and I think the ITJs also, they have the NI for their first function. We start out already being able to know what somebody is like, and then as we observe them, we're observing them to be able to fill in the blanks of why it is that they're like that, because we can already feel it from the beginning, but we don't know why. And unlike the ENFP or the ENTP, what we know is not something we're necessarily going to be able to use right away, because we don't have the, you know, the NE is the tangible thing, so we're not going to be able to act on it right away necessarily like they can. Whatever they observe, they're able to just go with it, but we don't. The way that we're looking at people, and the way that we're not necessarily able to connect what we know to like the tangible world and how everybody's operating in the visible world. So yeah, it's different. Like, we do know to begin with, but we're not able to use what we know as quickly as an ENFP can, or an ENTP. Another thing that ENFPs can have a problem with is dealing with things in relationships. They can get into sticking to someone for a very long time, beyond the point that it's healthy for them, because they believe in them and see their potential.